Project Search.
Well, hey y'all, it's Danny again. Today, I'll be talking to you about another important subject, and that is time theft. Engaging in time theft is an unfortunately common thing. It gets people in trouble at work, gets them fired even. It also is really bad for businesses and organizations because it diminishes productivity, meaning people just don't get as much done and the business or organization can't function. Watch this presentation, pay attention closely, because later on there will be a quiz on this material. Project Search UTMC Remote Learning, Time Theft. What is time theft? Time theft at work occurs when an employee accepts pay from their employer for work that they have not actually done or for time they have not actually put into their work. Since the employee is not actually doing the necessary amount of work during their shift, it is considered a theft of time from the company. Time theft can come in many forms and many levels of severity. Let's take a closer look at the forms of time theft and the consequences associated with it. First, let's talk about time theft at the time clock. Time card theft or fraud can occur in a few different ways. If an employee does not show up for their shift at work but has their friend punch in and out for them that day, it would be considered time card fraud. Another way the time card fraud occurs is when an employee lies about the amount of hours they have worked in a single shift. So in the picture you see kind of an old style time clock where you have an actual physical card that you insert and it stamps your card to show when you've clocked in and clocked out. You'll probably have a different way to clock in and out at your job. Sometimes you'll have this sort of system like in the picture, but a lot of times now people actually have a computer unit that they go and put their time in and put their time out on the computer. Or you may have a form, a written form that you fill out by hand. There are different ways to clock in and out. But the concept is still the same. If you haven't shown up for work and you ask a friend at work to clock in and out for you, you've committed fraud, meaning that you are trying to accept payment for work you didn't actually do. And furthermore, the friend who you've asked to do that, if they get caught, well, they're going to get in a lot of trouble themselves. So don't have somebody do that for you, and don't do that for someone else. Either way, it's trouble. Staying on break too long. Another way that time theft occurs in the workplace is when employees take too much time on their given breaks. For example, leaving for break early and coming back from break late, or when employees take more breaks in a shift than they are allowed. This is one of the most common types of theft of time in the workplace. Stick to those breaks that you have been given and don't go over either way on the time. If you make that a habit of coming back to work from your break late, leaving early, it will be noticed and there will be consequences. Too much time spent on personal matters. So we see in the picture here an employee who's kind of sneaking around, looking to see if anybody's watching, maybe checking to see if a supervisor's around. And then, he's made a call home to his wife to discuss personal matters when he's actually supposed to be doing his tasks. Often employees spend parts of their workday making and taking personal calls to deal with personal and home situations, or spend time checking and sending email that is non-work related. While sometimes this is necessary or allowed for some employees, when these situations are abused is when they become forms of time theft in the workplace. Really, the thing to remember about making calls to a family member or spouse, significant other, and so on, is that it's really only appropriate to do if it is an actual emergency. If it is not an emergency to call the person you want to call, then you need to wait until it's your break time or wait until you've left work. Internet time theft. One of the most common forms of time theft occurs when employees use technology for non-work related purposes. This could entail everything from browsing news or entertainment stories on the internet to spending time on social media networking sites and shopping online. We associate this type of time theft most with people who work in offices and use computers for most of their tasks, but it can happen in a lot of different types of jobs, even jobs where you don't really use computers much. People will kind of sneak in and get on a computer unit. Perhaps they spend a very small fraction of their day on the computer to say, take notes or take inventory or something like that. And they end up, just stealing a few minutes to go surf the web, see what's happening in the news, see what's happening on their social media account. But that's not okay. It is considered time theft. Let's talk about the consequences of time theft. First, there's loss of productivity. You see in the picture here this big stack of paperwork that someone neglected to do because they were spending too much time either surfing the web or taking personal phone calls or taking breaks that were too long, and now their work's piled up. I use the example of clerical tasks here in the picture, but really loss of productivity can occur in a lot of different ways. So if your main task is to, say, clean dishes at a restaurant or cafeteria, but you haven't been staying on task and instead you've been ducking around the corner and texting or calling a friend or getting on your phone and going online and not keeping up with your dishes, then those can stack up too. So it can happen a lot of different ways. So we have this loss of productivity, which leads to disciplinary action. In the picture, you see an employee being given what you might call a write-up or written warning of some sort because their productivity has dropped off because they've been stealing time and they haven't been focusing on their tasks. Further consequence could be termination, meaning you got fired. Eventually, your loss of productivity will lead to disciplinary action up to termination. And then there you are, having to go to the unemployment office and having to also try to find a whole new job, which is going to be harder now because you've been fired. You can't use your previous job as a reference. So as you see, there are serious consequences for time theft. And if you're thinking to yourself, I can browse the internet or take extra breaks or attend to personal matters and still get my work done, think again. Even if you manage to keep your productivity at an acceptable level, time theft is not acceptable. If your employer discovers that you're stealing time, then you will be fired. So in other words, even if you think, I'm keeping up with everything, I can still sort of take an extra few minutes on my break, or I can still go online when nobody's looking and shop around or see what's happening on social media. Even if you think I'm getting away with this, well, if you get caught, it doesn't matter how productive you've been. The business or organization, they're not going to find that acceptable, and you're going to be let go. To sum up, avoid time theft. If you're ever tempted to engage in time theft, remind yourself that when you report to work, you're being paid to give your time to your employer in exchange for a wage or salary. Money, money, money. Shop online, surf the internet, and attend to personal business when you are not at work. Don't take breaks that are too long, and don't take them too frequently, and don't try to cheat the time clock. Be fair, be honest, have integrity, do your work when you're at work. Take care of shopping and socializing and attending to family issues when you're not at work. I'm looking forward to discussing this topic with you guys. I'll say it one more time. There will be a quiz on this material later in the week. Toodaloo.